So openness to experience and a growth mindset, to me, are things that characterize both people who grow and people who are successful. So one way to think about how you can shift, add the word yet. For example, I teach negotiation, and a lot of people tell me, I'm not good at negotiation. You can add the word yet to that sentence, and suddenly you're more in a learning mindset. I can't lead yet, but you maybe could lead if you keep at it, and it puts you more in a growth mindset. I can get better at this. And that belief, that framing of you in experiences is really important, because it motivates you to try new things, and it motivates you to be open to that feedback and to really explore in your reflections on your experiences so you can grow. Hi, everybody. I'm Sue Ashford, and I am the author of The Power of Flexing. And I'm delighted that it has received its Korean translation, and I am thrilled that some of you have been reading it and have submitted questions. Your next question asked me, well, why is growth so important? Why do I think it's so important? And I really do. I think the best thing you can say about a life at the end of a person's life is that person continued to be alive. And I think by be alive, we mean they continued to grow. They continued to get better. But that may seem very far away to you, the end of life, but I'll just say that at least in the U.S. society, and I suspect it's true in Korean society, things are changing. Norms are changing. Task demands are changing. People are changing as we get new generations in. And so if you literally are not growing, you will become obsolete, or you will not be adaptable in the ways you need to be. You have a new collaborator that you need to collaborate in another division of the company. Well, suddenly you maybe need to talk differently. You maybe need to run your life a little bit differently, get there on time if they're an on-time group. Have an agenda if they're that kind of group or that kind of person. So we're always kind of adapting as new things come at us. We're also adapting as we change companies, change jobs in a company, maybe change our careers. And so growth seems really important. I do believe there are ways to succeed without growing a whole lot, particularly the kind of growth this book talks about, which is your personal and interpersonal effectiveness. You could be the best data coder or coding and programming that exists and never have to grow personally or interpersonally to be more effective, because you don't really interact with people that much, and you have a skill that is really needed. You have to grow your knowledge about that skill, but that's kind of the limits of it. But most of us live in a world where we are interacting with others, we are coordinating with others, or we're leaders trying to get others to do something. And to me, those people that live in that world need to care about growing, because it's going to be critical to their success. So the characteristics that they tend to have in common are an openness, meaning an openness to hearing messages from others about where, you're not as perfect as maybe you think you are, an openness to considering where internally where something's not feeling right or going right, and generating a motivation to grow from that feeling and that data. So that openness is really important. The second is something I talk about in the book, which is a growth mindset, a mindset that says, I can get better at this. And that belief, that framing of you in experiences is really important, because it motivates you to try new things, and it motivates you to be open to that feedback, and to really explore in your reflections on your experiences so you can grow. So openness to experience and a growth mindset, to me, are things that characterize both people who grow and people who are successful. You also asked about something that's emphasized in the book, and I talked about a bit earlier in this video, which is the growth mindset. And you said in Korean society, we're all very anxious about how we're doing relative to other people, and our big goal is to avoid failure. And maybe we even step away from challenges. I call that a performance-proof mindset in the book. And you ask, well, how do you move away from that towards a learning mindset? Such a great question, because we really are socialized into the mindset we adopt. So many I know the U.S. school system, many people are really socialized into a performance-proof mindset, and that determines their success. So then suddenly when you hit tasks that are more complicated, more complex, where you need to learn them fast, a performance-proof mindset that puts you into kind of a tense, anxious stance really is not the best mindset. So one way to think about how you can shift is an exercise I do with people where I tell them to describe an experience that didn't go as well as they wanted it to the person sitting next to them. And then I have that person who's listening ask them as many questions as they can that are designed to move them more to a learning mindset. And they ask great questions like, what's your takeaway from this moving forward? What's something you learned about from this experience that you think will be useful to yourself? So all of the questions that person in the exercise asked the person describing the challenge, you could ask yourself. So maybe you could think of a set of learning-oriented questions and have those at the ready. And so when you find yourself going into more of a performance-proof mindset, you could remind yourself to pay attention to what you could learn from the experience, how it could serve as a jump start to your subsequent growth. One thing you can do to help yourself when you hear yourself use performance-proof language or someone else is to add the word yet. For example, I teach negotiation, and a lot of people tell me, I'm not good at negotiation. You can add the word yet to that sentence, and suddenly you're more in a learning mindset. I can't lead yet, but you maybe could lead if you keep at it, and it puts you more in a growth mindset. So I've had the great pleasure of teaching these ideas over time and watching their impact on people. I've also had people write to me by email and tell me what these ideas have meant to them and how they're using them. So it can make a big difference. I'll tell you one story that I talk about in the book. This was a person I met in one of our wonderful executive education programs here at the Ross School of Business. And he said that he kept getting passed over for leadership positions. He said, people saw me as only an analyst, not someone who has people skills and can lead. And so he set a goal of developing that side of himself and making sure other people saw it. So one of the things he did was he took several of our courses, but he also sought feedback from people. He would say to people, look, I'm working on trying to become the best leader I can for this team. Do you have any feedback for me? And they would tell him things. He also, when he was dealing with his boss, he talked about the leadership he was doing. So making sure they saw what he was doing and how he was growing. And for him, it paid off in getting of that promotion he wanted to get, but to show you how sticky people's impressions are, he had to leave his company in order to get that promotion. He went to a different company that was able to see him differently, and he could talk about the growth he had made because he was attending to it carefully and using the power of flexing to achieve that growth. I wrote this book based on over 20 years of experience trying to help leaders grow to be better leaders over time. They're very busy people, and yet they typically need to grow in some ways, both to do that role well and just to become more effective people and more effective interpersonally. So in the process of writing the book, my agent and editor said, you know, Sue, those aren't the only people that want to grow. People want to become better parents. People want to be better siblings, better community members, do something impactful in their lives. And they also need to grow in their personal and interpersonal effectiveness. And this book is really designed to help you do that, to help busy people grow, to become better versions of themselves over time. So the power of flexing, the core of it is really a set of 6 practices that help you to do that. And the book outlines those 6 practices with a chapter on each. And we talked with over 70 people when we were preparing to write the book, interviewing them on what they did to grow and how the things they did helped them, maybe what they wish they had done, looking backwards as well. So those practices have to do with how do you learn more from the everyday experiences that you're having anyway. You're going through your life. If you're reading this book, you might work in an organization or in a community group, and you're doing things. You're running a retreat. You're getting a new boss or a new work group, and you need to be effective for them. And the book is on how you use that experience to also extract as much learning as you can for yourself so that you can grow yourself over time. I accept that that could be true. I don't know a lot about Korean organizations, but I have people tell me this all the time. They say, Sue, it might be nice to have a learning mindset, but in my organization, you have to prove every day that you belong there. We're starting to develop some research on this, and people are comparing that kind of organization, which they call a genius culture, where everybody needs to show that they're a genius in order to survive, and contrasting that with more of a learning culture. And so it does take some effort, particularly if it's ingrained in the culture of the organization and then reinforced by the culture of the society or the country. And so it really takes, first of all, messages from the top. So in the book, I talk about Microsoft and what Satya Nadella was able to do when he took over Microsoft as the CEO. He really cared about creating a learning culture, and he messaged that from the top. But more important to the rank and file is what their immediate supervisor did. The rank and file, if you ask them, what is the culture of the company, they often mostly relate to their immediate supervisor. If that person is very command and control, they think the organization is command and control. If that person is more learning oriented, they maybe will think the organization is that. So within your sphere of influence in an organization, there really is a lot you can do. You could mimic that researcher and ask questions about growth and learning in every meeting you have or in every periodic meeting, once a quarter, for example. You also can shape what people think is allowable by admitting what's true for you. Maybe that beautiful polished PowerPoint had a lot of muck and mess behind it, and you could talk about that, the struggle to get to the end as well as the beautiful end. That allows them to also talk about the muck and mess that they're going through, but always with an eye towards how are you growing from it.